Distinguished guests, please take your seats and silence your mobile phones. The program will begin momentarily. Please welcome Senator Cory Booker to the stage.
Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, let me hear that again. Good afternoon, everybody. Is it good to be here? Oh, wait, hold. We can't be a bunch of folk from the African diaspora and from Africa without getting a little more church up in here. How is everybody? Well, welcome to the closing plenary of the African and Diaspora Young Leaders Forum at this year's U.S. Africa Leaders Summit. You can applaud that if you'd like. I am so grateful to be here with the many dynamic, dedicated leaders who are working hard to chart a more peaceful and prosperous future for us all. From exploring innovative solutions, from improving higher education, from addressing the impacts of climate change, or strengthening economic opportunity, today's forum has shown that young people are not just important, but essential to solving some of the world's most pressing challenges. It has also shown us that we must continue amplifying the voices of the African diaspora to strengthen, go ahead, applaud if you'd like. You don't need permission to applaud. To strengthen the African diaspora so that we can see the great societal and economic opportunities flourish. Now, there are immense opportunities that can be grasped through governments, private sectors, and communities working together. That is where power lies. Talent, skill, entrepreneurial ideas all coming together. We know that it exists in abundance in the United States and Africa. I'm reminded by so many sayings that come from the continent. Spider webs united could tie up a lion. Sticks in a bundle can't be broken. Or my favorite, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. The best way we can solve the complex challenges and problems of our countries is by working together, by coming together, by standing together. That is how we must meet the next generation coming. Go ahead, I applaud that as well. And so I know the importance of improving and strengthening this diaspora. This work is incredible. There may be an ocean between us, but there is blood that bonds us. I'm proud that my ancestry comes from Cameroon and Sierra Leone. All right. My Sierra Leone sister there, I see you. But today, I am proud. I come from the city of Newark, and we have such an extraordinary Ghanaian community. So I am proud that today I get to introduce the president of Ghana, Akufo-Addo. He created something that was so powerful for African Americans, the Year of Return Initiative in 2019. 400 years after the first enslaved people were brought to what is now the United States. This effort that he led helped hundreds, if not thousands, of members of the Africa diaspora visit Ghana and undertake a landmark spiritual journey of birthright. He helped to promote U.S. Ghanaian people to return to their cultural ties, to rediscover the bonds that bind us, to see the fruits that can come by affirming our ancestral lands. He's also taken principled stands as a leader against the unjust invasion of Ukraine. He has urged us to fight the devastating effects of climate change before it is too late. He has accomplished extraordinary things, even though he deals with something in Ghana that's very American, parliamentary gridlock. So I hope that we can continue to learn from one of the globe's great leaders. I bring you right now, it is truly my pleasure to bring to the stage the President of Ghana, President Akufo-Addo.
Madam Vice President, ladies and gentlemen, I thank the African and Diaspora Young Leaders Forum for making me part of this conversation and for the opportunity to deliver these remarks at the closing plenary in the presence of the U.S. Vice President, the Honorable Kamala Harris, and in this spectacular building, so admired by all Ghanaians, and indeed by all Africans, as it was designed by one of the foremost architects of his generation, the globally acclaimed Ghanaian architect, David Adjaye. The forum has chosen the most relevant theme of Africa's contemporary situation, a theme which sums up the essence of African aspirations, amplifying voices, building partnerships that work. I've stated it before, that it sometimes appears the words Africa and Africans have more resonance outside the continent than inside. When we are home on our continent, it always seems very important to assert that we are Ghanaians, Ivorians, Kenyans, Nigerians, Swazis, Senegalese, Rwandans, South Africans, and Zambians. Then we find ourselves outside the continent, and then we discover that to the outside world, there are no Ghanaians, there are no Senegalese, and there are no Tanzanians. There are only Africans, and we are all simply Africans. The lesson for me is clear. Our destinies are intricately linked with each other, and we're talking not only about those of us on the continent, but about the Africans in the diaspora as well. You can be an honors graduate from any of the top universities of this country. You can be a second or third generation American, and you can be in a well-paid job. If there's an outbreak of Ebola someplace on the African continent, you are an African. Anyone, everybody in a position of leadership in Africa today, thus has his or her work cut out. The urgent responsibility we face is to make our countries and our continent attractive for our peoples, to see them as places of opportunities. It means we must provide education, quality education and skills training. It means our young people must acquire the skills that run modern economies. The impact of a successful Africa on the image and standing of Africans in the diaspora applies with equal force to the image and standing of her sons and daughters who go by the name African Americans, and indeed to all her kith and kin in the Americas and the Caribbean. There's a lot of room for your perspectives and energies back in Africa. History tells us of the positive impact of diasporan communities on the growth and development of countries through increased trade activities, rising investments, and the transfer of skills and knowledge. Take the case of China, for example. With an émigré population of some 60 million, the Chinese diaspora is said to be the 25th largest country in the world, who, according to the Nikkei Asian Review, own assets worth 2.5 trillion United States dollars. When foreign companies in the late 1970s reduced their investments in China, it was the Chinese diaspora that shored up the economy. According to the Washington, D.C.-based Migration Policy Institute, MPI, half of the foreign direct investment, that is some 26 billion United States dollars, that transformed China into a manufacturing powerhouse in the 1990s, originated from the Chinese diaspora. That is the rationale of Ghana's initiative of Beyond the Return, which is building on the considerable success of the Year of Return and the renewed enthusiasm around building Africa together. We must work to help change the African narrative, which has been characterized largely by a concentration on disease, hunger, poverty, and illegal mass migration. Let us all remember that the destiny of all Black people, no matter where they are in the world, is bound up with Africa. We should never forget that famous admonition of the celebrated Jamaican reggae star Peter Tosh, when he said, and I quote, "Don't care where you come from. As long as you are a Black man, you are an African," unquote. We must help make Africa the place for investment, progress, and prosperity, and not from where our youth flee in the hope of accessing the mirage of a better life in Europe, Asia, or the Americas. That is what the Beyond the Return seeks to do, so we can derive maximum dividends from our relations with the diaspora in mutually beneficial cooperation, and as partners for shared growth and development. The second half of the 20th century witnessed a great blow for human progress and freedom when the African peoples, in the wake of Ghana's shining example, liberated themselves from the colonial and imperialist yoke and the racist ideology of apartheid and emerged as free, independent peoples to construct new nations of hope and advancement. The first half of the 21st century should consolidate this development and see the growth of modern, prosperous, technologically advanced nations within a united Africa, which would make a reality of the dream of the 21st century as the African century and bring dignity and respect to Black people all over the world. We've done enough talking, and dare I say we've had enough conferences and workshops. We know what we need to do. It is time just to do it. We've run out of excuses for the state of our continent. We have the manpower. We should have the political will. It is time to make Africa work. We have good reason to be proud of who we are and the beautiful continent that is ours with its vibrant cultures. The geographic space covered by Africa makes it the second largest of the 7 continents. It has 30% of the world's remaining minerals of value. It has some of the most breathtaking scenes on our planet. It has plants and animals that are wonders of the world and critical for the survival of the globe. I hear a lot about the need to change our narrative and tell our own good story. Ladies and gentlemen, as the saying goes, nothing succeeds like success. If we work at it, if we stop being beggars and spend Africa's monies inside the continent, Africa would not need to ask for respect from anyone. We would get the respect we deserve. Over 30 years ago, one of America's most prestigious Ivy League universities offered a course in Mandarin, which for years had virtually no takers. Today, there is standing room only. And it is not because the course is any easier. It is because the position of China has changed. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, China was nowhere near where it is today. China does not ask for anyone for respect now. She does not need it. Let us make our continent the prosperous and joyful place it should be, and the respect would follow. I thank you for your attention.
Flick the words on.
You guys are gonna turn the prompter on? That looks really good on the left, at least. Looks good on the left.
Please welcome Wally Adeyemo, Deputy Secretary of the Treasury.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. And as they mentioned, my name is Wally Adeyemo, and I am the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury. And I want to thank the President of Ghana for being here today and for his efforts to strengthen the African diaspora community. The success of Ghana's Year of the Return in 2019 is an inspiring example of how to draw on the United States' large and engaged diaspora communities to build closer ties between Ghana, Africa, more broadly, and the United States. For me, a number of my friends had an opportunity to go to the continent for the first time during the Year of the Return, and to think about their role and their relationship with the continent that we have all come from. The diaspora's role in shaping America's society and culture and the way its members contribute to the dynamism of our economy are themes that are deeply personal to me. The story of the African American diaspora is one that is part of my story. My parents, although they raised me in Southern California, came to this country with me in hand, immigrating here from Nigeria. I know firsthand a few Nigerians in the crowd, and while they brought me from Nigeria, like many African stories, they touched on many different countries in their journey in Africa. Growing up in Ghana, oftentimes in our house, we had kenke for dinner at the same time that you would have foods from Nigeria. So it spoke to the diversity of experiences that Africans bring to this country all the time. And I think that bringing that perspective to the Treasury Department, where I have the ability to serve the American people, adds to the rich legacy of this country as well, a country built on immigration. And the contributions the members of the diaspora make here, big and small, matter greatly to the United States economy and to our culture. But the diaspora also contributes to Africa. Brookings Study estimates the diaspora last year contributed $46 billion in remittances to Africa. And beyond the economic contributions, the people-to-people engagements creates ties that imbued this country and Africa with deep knowledge and a shared sense of common aspiration. Strengthening this community at forums like this one allows us to cement and deepen the ties. In doing so, we exchange openly and freely about challenges, and I'm aware of the multiple shocks African countries face today, and it's something that we should speak about openly and transparently. As all of you know, I am not the most senior person to serve in the U.S. government from the African diaspora. I had an opportunity to work for President Obama, both in his administration, but also helping to run his foundation. And part of what all of us know as young leaders in the African diaspora, and I consider myself part of this community, is that critical to our abilities to succeed is being able to see ourselves in leaders who have come before us, finding the type of mentors and examples that have blazed a path for us. And today I have the ability to introduce one of those mentors for me, one of those leaders who have blazed a path that has allowed me to be in the role that I'm in today, and that is Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Seat. Good afternoon. To Deputy Secretary Adeyemo, thank you for all you do. I will tell you what many of you probably know about him from the implementation of the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act to your sights, Wally, on what is important about strengthening economic relationships in Africa and around the world. You have been an extraordinary leader, and so to our Deputy Secretary of Treasury, let us plead applause his great role of leadership. President Akufo-Addo, it is wonderful to see you back in Washington again. I thank you for your work to strengthen the ties between our nations and our people. And to my dear friend, Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker, thank you for always being a voice in the United States Senate on the importance of the U.S.-Africa relationship. And to the hundreds of young leaders from Africa and around the United States who are with us today, welcome. And thank you for your leadership and participation. So it is fitting that we gather here today in this magnificent and historic museum. The shape of this building is inspired by Yoruba art from West Africa. The metal lattice work that you see outside that surrounds the building is inspired by the intricate ironwork crafted by enslaved American and throughout, in particular, the South, but African Americans who were enslaved in the United States. The building and many of the collections it holds are intended as a powerful reminder of the brutality of slavery and of the intertwined history between Africa and America, including our ongoing connections. It is a reminder of the strength and resilience of the African American people and the contributions of African Americans to our country. Africa is the oldest inhabited continent in the world, and it is home to the youngest population in the world. So Africa cannot help but be in the future business. I strongly believe that the creativity and ingenuity of Africa's young leaders will help us shape the future of the world, and that their ideas, your ideas, and innovations and initiatives will benefit the entire world. The Biden-Harris administration intends to be right there alongside you, these young leaders, knowing it is the spark and determination of young people that will drive and move us forward. And we are particularly excited about this future, as we are to host the US-Africa Leaders Summit this week. In the coming days, as well as the months and years ahead, our administration will invest our time and our energy to fortify partnerships across the continent. Partnerships that, importantly, are grounded in candor, openness, inclusiveness, shared interests, and mutual benefits. And overall, our administration will be guided not by what we can do for Africa, but what we can do with Africa. In recent decades, the United States and African countries have worked together to spur economic growth and expand trade capacity across the continent. We have worked together to prevent more than 1 billion cases of malaria and to help more than 22 million people living with HIV/AIDS. Since the beginning of our administration, the United States has invested and plans to provide more than $19 billion for public health and to combat COVID-19. $3.3 billion in medium and long-term agriculture and food security investments, $10 billion in emergency food security programming, and $4 billion in development. We are focused on working with the countries of Africa to address current challenges, as well as to promote long-term growth and innovation. Together, as we continue to advance our partnership in health, in development, and good governance, we are also addressing the need for climate resilience and clean energy, food security, access to finance, and digital technology. In the past 2 years, we have made important progress together, and we must, and we will, do more. Which brings me back then to Africa's young leaders. Just consider, 60% of the population of Africa is under the age of 25. That is nearly 850 million young people on the continent. And by 2050, that figure will grow to 1.2 billion people. 1.2 billion young people. This represents an enormous potential for the world in terms of economic growth and for social and political progress. And so within the next 2 years, the Biden-Harris administration would have invested more than $1 billion in education and youth programming in Africa, which will allow us to further our partnership with African academic institutions and the private sector on education and research in science, technology, engineering, and math. And it will allow us to expand our signature program for African youth, the Young African Leaders Initiative, also known as YALI. As the YALI alumni in the audience know, each year, fellows travel to colleges and universities in the United States for 6 weeks to study. They study business, civic engagement, or public management. We also developed YALI regional leadership centers to provide a similar experience at higher education institutions in Ghana, Kenya, Senegal, and South Africa. Through these experiences, these leaders join a continent-wide network of young leaders. Currently, more than 640,000 young Africans participate in the YALI network. In fact, today, yes, and today I actually met with some of the distinguished alumni, including a young woman who has worked to provide access to clean water for rural communities in Benin. I have met with Cecilia from Zambia, who is a social work student, and created projects that provide leadership training to more than 1,000 young people a week. And Ian, who created an organization in Tanzania that uses animation, comics, and radio stories to encourage young people to participate in social change. And to build on these successes, it is now my great pleasure to launch the next phase of YALI, a new investment of $100 million with which we will expand networking for alumni and connect them with social impact and business investors. And in so doing, we will continue to foster the ingenuity and creativity of young African leaders. These young leaders, the majority of whom were born in the 21st century, are coming of age on a continent with a vibrant spirit of entrepreneurship, from the tech hubs of Cairo and Nairobi to the incubators of Accra and Cape Town. African innovation benefits the entire world. Think of the Kenyan innovators who created a local mobile payment system that transformed global payment systems, or the Ethiopian startup that uses artificial intelligence to forecast changing trends in agricultural production and the climate crisis, and now is being used to battle food insecurity around the globe. Or the Nigerian fintech company that created a digital store at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, which allows small businesses around the world to sell their products online. It is in the spirit of all of that that this week the United States Export-Import Bank is entering into a new memoranda of understanding with entities in sub-Saharan Africa, whereby we will provide more than $1 billion to finance American commercial investment in Africa. This, we know and believe, will create jobs and opportunities in various sectors, and in particular, the renewable energy sector, in agriculture, water and sanitation, and infrastructure. In addition, we will launch the African Women's Trade and Investment Initiative, a new program which will help women across Africa participate in e-commerce and access financing and export markets. And that is because we all here know, when you lift up the economic status of women, you lift up the economic status of their children, of their families, and all of society benefits. And so we will also then relaunch the African Women Entrepreneurship Program to provide microfinancing to women to support their ambitions and their aspirations. So, for example, Manada Kone, who owns a cashew processing factory in Burkina Faso, is an alumna of this program. She secured a contract as a supplier for Costco. And when she expanded her factory, she hired more women. She then partnered with Costco to invest in training cashew producers in other villages to help them reach the international marketplace. Another alumna of this program, Israela of Ghana. When she graduated from college, she couldn't find a job. So she went into her savings and started to experiment with cosmetics in her kitchen. She ultimately created a line of natural hair and body care products, and she now exports her products to Asia, Europe, and the United States. Her products are actually sold on Etsy and Amazon if you're looking for them. And she continues to provide vocational training to women in rural communities. Because we know that when we invest in populations that have the incredible capacity of these young leaders, they also take it as part of their personal responsibility to build a legacy so others can follow. And with determination and access to finance, ingenuity knows no bounds. So to invest in the future, we must invest in our young people. And to be effective, we must strengthen a broad coalition between government and community leaders, philanthropic leaders, business leaders, and young leaders. And of course, with the African diaspora, so richly represented in this room. Today, President Biden will sign an executive order to create the President's Advisory Council on African Diaspora Engagement in the United States. This council will provide advice and recommendations to the President to strengthen the ties between the people of Africa and the people of America. By working together, we can unlock growth and opportunity that far exceeds what any of us can achieve alone. But we must invest in this coalition. So let us work together to foster the spark of creativity and ingenuity in Africa's young leaders. Throughout history, in moments of uncertainty and change, the world has often turned to young people to help lead the way forward. Now is no different. So to Africa's young leaders, I say, I am an optimist about what lies ahead for Africa and, by extension, for the world. Because of you, because of your energy, your ambition, and your ability to transform seemingly intractable problems into opportunities. Simply put, your ability to see what can be unburdened by what has been. I thank you all. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, please take your seats and silence your mobile phones. The program will begin momentarily. Distinguished guests, please take your seats and silence your mobile phones. The program will begin